So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the economics of horse racing and it as an ecosystem and what challenges we currently face, what opportunities there are, and how we may be able to tackle those challenges. So I want to start with, first of all, saying that on this stage today, there's over 100 years of horse racing experience. So I just want to take a minute to reflect and think of how great it is to have such amazing women here today that we get to learn from. I'm kind of in awe that I'm sitting up here and looking out at people in the crowd that are just so experienced and have such a wealth of knowledge. So I want to start with you, Anna, and it would be helpful to give a little bit of a background on how this all connects, right? So there's so many different aspects to horse racing, and kind of what's the life cycle of the economics there?
So the economic lifestyle of the racehorse, I mean, it can start as early as if you breed a racehorse, you have a mare, you take it to a stallion, and then the foal is born, and you might be interested in thinking, okay, I put a lot of money into the stud fee, I've been raising this horse, what are the opportunities along the way where I can maybe cash out and make some money? So that's where Phasic Tipton comes into play. There's 3 sales companies in the United States. You can enter your thoroughbred into multiple auctions at all different ages of their lives. But the first one, when you could sell a weanling at the sale. You could actually sell a mare and a foal together. So there's ways through their whole life cycle that you can sell through public auction. And Phasic Tipton and Keeneland and OBS are there to help you facilitate the process of coming out, talking to you about your horse, looking at your horse, seeing where does your horse fit best in the market to maximize the most amount of money, because you want to make sure, there's all different state-bred types of horses, and they're all thoroughbreds, but there's different levels, and you want to make sure you place your horse in the appropriate auction to make the most amount of dollars, because as we all know, this sport is very expensive, and so if you're trying to run it as a business, you want to do it the best way possible. So the auctions, you can sell it as a weanling, then or maybe you wait till the yearling sales, you sell the horse as a yearling, and then hopefully you make money. Then you could, that horse could go on to say that someone buys your yearling and wants to race it. They could take it on to the track when it's 2 years old, or you could put it in a 2-year-old sale. So we call that pin hooking, flipping it from a yearling to a 2-year-old sale. Try to make, you bring the horse to the racetrack, and actually the horse is in training at a 2-year-old in training sale. So you could try to, hopefully your horse breezes very well and is good looking, and then the horse makes money at the training sale. But if you're like, I really want to race, I want to keep this horse that I bred, and I want to see if I can make it as a racehorse owner, obviously there's a lot of opportunities for that. So again, it's along the cycle, it's expensive to have these horses in training, but to raise them from the time they're born all the way to go into training. And once a horse is with a trainer, it costs about, I usually say, about $4,000 to $5,000 a month now to have a horse in training. But hopefully, if you have a good racehorse, you're running, especially here in Kentucky, there's big purses. And if you have a good horse, you could be making money at the racetrack with purse money. It's hard to do. All of the horse owners here know that we all want to do it. I've been trying my whole life to get good horses, and you bring in your friends and you syndicate them, and you want to get that big horse, and you want the horse to be able to pay its way. But it's hard to do. I always say to new owners in the game, if you're going to have racehorses, don't look at this as an investment. Don't come into it thinking, this is going to be how I'm going to pay for my kids' college education, because hopefully that happens, but a lot of times it's not going to happen because it's very, like I said, it's expensive and it's hard to do. But if your horse is good on the racetrack, then there's opportunities to make money in the purses. And then, the big score would be if you have a really good colt with a big pedigree and he's winning big-time prestigious races, then you can make a stallion, and then the real money comes in if you get to stand at one of these prestigious stallion farms in Kentucky or New York or Florida, and then you're really making money. Or someone buys your horse, pays you a lot of money, and they want to stand it. So there are definitely opportunities. And then, as you know, then if that happens, and then this is a really good stallion, then you would hope that the cycle kind of starts all over. So as the stallion breeds young mares or breeds mares, and then the babies are on the ground, you would hope okay, now I want to try all over again and put these babies into the sale that are by a commercial stallion. So there's always ways to be getting in and out of the sport, to be entering your horses into different cycles of their life, to be through the ecosystem of the sport, whether it's breeding, racing, selling, lots of different opportunities.
Absolutely, and thank you for the kind of overview of the life cycle. And Katie, I know in your work on the Kentucky Horse Council, you looked a lot at the economic impact of racing as a whole in the world. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So the Kentucky Horse Council did some economic impact studies in partnership with UK, but then the American Horse Council looks at the entire equine industry across the country. I think they do that about every 5 years, and their last study was in 2023. And showed that the racing industry itself had about a $40 billion impact annually on the U.S. economy, and also creates about 480,000 jobs across the country, which is a really significant number. They also have a great infographic that I don't have, but it shows all of the various jobs that relate to that horse. And it's everything from, on the owner side, you need accountants and attorneys. You have bloodstock agents, you have the sales houses, everything that goes along with that. Racetrack side, you have everything from horsemen's bookkeepers to track maintenance supervisors, marketing executives, everyone that is part of running a racetrack. On the trainer side, you have grooms, you have hot walkers, you have the trainers themselves, you have feed companies, you have tack companies. So there are just all of these jobs that are both directly connected and tangentially connected to the racing industry. So tons of opportunities out there for everyone.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to see and meet all these people here today. Everyone may have a totally different job title, but we're all tied to horse racing in some way. So it's there's a world of opportunity to be connected to the horse industry without being maybe a direct owner. Like Maggie, I know you have been an owner, you are an owner. Owning has some challenges, right? I mean, I think it's, as Anna said earlier, it can be quite expensive. Tell us a little bit about your experience and what's changed over time and what some of the challenges have been.
Well, first of all, before I get into painful subjects of finances and owning horses, I want to say that, as I told Stephanie, thank you all, every one of you. You have really invigorated me. I live in a little office in Iowa or Arizona, even worse, and seeing all you people, all you individuals, has just been very big stimuli for me. And that's why before talking about ownership or owning horses, I always like to look at an audience and think that the one thing you all have here is a love for the sport or a love for horses or an interest in the sport. I can tell you, no matter what direction you're going, what financial background you come from, I didn't have one of those rich husbands, and I didn't have a family that really thought that this was a good way to go. So I went to the University of Kentucky here in Lexington. I had the time of my life. I almost flunked out. And I used to go to Keeneland Racetrack. Now, I rode hunters and jumpers my whole life, but my dad reminded me how much that cost every Friday. And, but I tell you, I would go to Keeneland and I'd watch racing. And to me, it was out of reach. It was royalty. It was like something that would never be part of my world. And ultimately, when it came time to graduate from the University of Kentucky, my roommate and I, my sorority sister, said, what are we going to do now? We just had the best 4 years of our life. And she said, law school, because there were men, and we thought that'd be good. And law school thought that I couldn't get into any law school because I didn't even have a recognized degree of any kind, but I wanted to help people. But nevertheless, I did get into law school, and it was a very male-orientated world, being a trial lawyer. And then one day I went to my home track at Prairie Meadows, and I used to judge horse shows, so the shiniest horse, what would it cost to own a racehorse? And I bought my first racehorse 18 years ago, maybe. And I tell you, the perception that it's the sport of kings or it's royalty or that you can't have a part of it, I am a living example. Not real bright, not real, certainly didn't have the picket fence and the husband and kids, but that passion that passion for whatever it is you want to go into is what I had. I had a passion for animals. And I learned, and I studied, and I talked, and I read. Ultimately, it came to a point that my law partner said, pick your poison. You can't do both. And to say that owning horses is challenging, I kind of disagree. It's changed a lot. But may it be owning horses or being any part of the legal field or anything you want to do with horses, if you absolutely love something and you're passionate about something, the money will follow. If you love the money, really nothing's going to follow. So my advice is read, learn, surround yourself with people. Look at you all. I mean, I'm blown away by you all, seriously. You can learn so much. Make sure it's the right people. We have partnerships. We have smaller operations, smaller tracks. There's a great need, and I'll tell you, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not a man lover. My paralegals, my legal assistants were all women. My horse business, the welfare business is all women. Why? Conscientious, passionate, big hearts, great work ethic, and about 10 others. And so I highly recommend, no matter what you think's out of reach, including owning horses, you can do it. Anything you want to do in this industry, if you love the horse, you can definitely do it with hard work and good people. And that's about it. I don't know if that's challenging. It's not challenging if you love something.
Yeah, and I think your point about following the love, the money will follow, instead of following the money first. And I think, too, you mentioned something that I want to point out, that there's multiple women up here involved in these all-female partnerships, right? And so that's it's a newer ownership vehicle where there's multiple smaller shares, that sort of thing. But there are all-female partnerships out here that are just really out there doing a great thing, and that you can get with people who are similar-minded to you about racing and all of that.
And by the way, you all are very lucky, not to interrupt, but I can remember the first time I went to Saratoga, they weren't going to let me sit in a box because I had leather leggings on. And then they weren't going to let me go to the winner's circle. And a long time ago at Keeneland, you couldn't get in with leather leggings, which I happen to love. But you've got to just go for it. What you wear, what you do, just make your path and love what you do. Sorry, that leather leggings story at Saratoga, I'll never forget.
Necessary. I love it. Kelly, can you give us some more insight on some of the trends in the industry over the past few years and what the numbers are looking like and what some challenges or opportunities there are?
Sure. Well, I'm on the racing side, so I know more about race days and such, but over the last 10 years, we have a reduction in actual racetracks that are running thoroughbreds of 12% decline in racetracks. Race days are down 20%. Number of races are down 17%. Handle is up. That's a very good thing. Over the last 10 years, it has dipped a little bit in the last 2 years, but because of the decline in the race days, the average handle per race day is up, and that's also a positive indicator. How do you go about, combating that or trying to minimize that as we move forward? There's no singular answer, and nobody on this panel has it. But as I think about it, I think about what you can do is think about your reach, and you can think about the reach that you have at in-person facilities, and then how you reach people to bring our product to them when they're not in person. And right now, currently, we have a lot of racetracks that are investing in their structural infrastructures, capital investments that ongoing right now, $2 billion in capital infrastructure at some of our more premier racetracks that include Woodbine, Pimlico, Churchill Downs, Oaklawn, Belmont, Keeneland. You all see Keeneland tomorrow, maybe some of you. It's really a wonderful endeavor. And so making those investments so that people want to come out and have a experience witnessing what you have to offer is very important. And then also being able to reach people where they are. And the industry has made an investment recently and over the last few years in our broadcast reach through television, right? So NBC, Fox Sports with our premier race days, Triple Crown race days have had very good viewership. And then also just the year-round Fox Sports now of the racing that we have has significant impact on the people that we can reach in their homes on television and on their phones. And so that would be one thing that I think we should know is happening within our industry and the investments that are being made.
Katie, what about from an HHR perspective? How does that impact the purses and everything else?
Yeah, HHR, historical horse racing, for those of you that don't know, is a type of gaming that to many people looks like a slot machine. We don't like that term. We prefer a historical racing machine or an electronic gaming machine. A quick explanation of this is that there are 4 types of slot-like gaming. The original is Class 3 gaming, which is random number generation. That's a slot machine that you would see in Vegas and at many tribal casinos. The other big one is called Class 2, and that's bingo patterns. So this was a way to get slot-like gaming into states that legalized bingo. And historical horse racing is similar to Class 2, to bingo patterns, except those results are predicated on the results of previously run horse races, and it's parimutuel. And that's really the key here and how we're able to get this into states that permit racing. So you have to have at least 2 games on the same math model or pool. So if you go to the Red Mile, you're going to see 4 to 8 of the same game always. All of those games are playing in the same pool. For every $1 wagered into that machine, 10 cents is the takeout, approximately, which is going to the operator of the facility, and the other 90 cents is going back into the pool to be paid out to the other, to the gamblers. Of that 10 cents that goes to the operator, a percentage of this is taken for the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, or in other states where there's HHR, something similar. Those funds then are used for both breeders' incentive funds as well as purses. So in 2024 in Kentucky, $55.5 million went from HHR revenue, HHR handle, into the KTDF for purses. And then, the racing industry in Kentucky, while so many other states have contracted, the states that have tied HHR to racing are actually growing. So not only in Kentucky are we seeing bigger purses, we're seeing strong race days, we're seeing good handle, but 2 other states, in particular Virginia and Wyoming, are also growing their racing industries. Because of HHR, Virginia brought back Colonial Downs in 2019. That year they had 15 race days. I believe in 2024 they just completed 44 race days. So this is growing. Their purses are growing. They have $1 million races now. They have a Derby prep. Wyoming, they went from having 1 racetrack to 3 racetracks. I looked at 2019, even though it had been around longer than that. They had 30 race days in 2019. This year they had 55 race days. They also had their first 6-figure purses in 2024. Not something people think about very often, and they also have a lot of quarter horse racing. But we're seeing these states that tie historical horse racing, tie this gaming revenue, which I know a lot of people would like racing to be separate from gaming, but they are connected at this point. Tying this gaming revenue into the racing industry, and it's really helping the bottom dollar, it's helping those purses, it's helping those breeders' incentive funds, which is helping bring more owners into the game, I believe.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, the state breeding operations and those funds and how it may change the incentives for where someone is going to be breeding a horse, where they're going to be raising a horse or racing a horse. So very interesting to think about all the impacts of that. Yep. So now one thing that I think some of us that have been in it for a while and go to the track a lot, you open a program and it is about the most confusing thing in the world, right? And there have been major improvements over time to make stuff more approachable, make it more understandable for the regular viewer. But in this day and age where a fan of any sport can get online and look at football statistics, basketball statistics, sports that children grow up playing and grow up with in their household, racing faces a little bit of a challenge there, and people may not have grown up in it and may not have the awareness about the data. So what do you all think has been an improvement to how data is presented or how it gets to, Kelly, I know you talked about reaching the fans where they are. What do you see in that area? And this is for anyone on this panel.
I think that just the way that we've all adapted now to mobile environments, always have a phone or a tablet with us, that has forced data providers and providers of products that they're developing on their own to have to think about how to present that in a more concise manner on a smaller screen. And I think that that's helped anybody who's coming in new to the industry to not have that intimidating 12-line PP in front of them that looks like hieroglyphics to somebody who's never bet on a horse race before. And, we still have, probably 150 venues that sell the traditional past performance program when you walk in. But when you look around at these facilities, a lot of the people are on their phones, right? They're not buying the traditional past performances. We at Equibase, we have over 100 data customers who buy our data so that they can display it on their websites, on their phones. Some of those are the ADWs. I love the way the ADWs are displaying the data for you to make a wagering decision. And I think that's how we're going to keep the new fans engaged. And those of us who still might want to read PPs, those are still available and widely used. But we have to meet them where they are, and right now they are on their phones.
I think that's so true. Sorry. I'm taking advantage of maternity leave, colleagues, so sorry. And have been spending a bit of time at Keeneland with my child. So, I print my racing form every time before I go out there. I can read the form. I like to handicap. Am I doing it? Nope. I am looking at the data that I am finding from tip sheets that I see on X or Threads and on TVG or TwinSpires or Keeneland Select, whichever ADW you choose. And it just facilitates wagering quicker and easier. And, my husband can read a past performance if he has to, but I don't think he's looked at it in a good 5 years. So he makes all of his wagering decisions that way through the ADWs and the tip sheets, and his ROI is not bad. We're still paying our mortgage.
We have a long way to go though, because it's very hard. So if you're a new owner and you go to the races and you fall in love with a horse, say you love Torpedo Anna, okay, well, how do I get all the information on Torpedo Anna? How do I get her past performances? Where do I go? So Kenny McPeak's been great in showcasing her, but also he has horse races now, so you can download that app for free and you can put her in your stable, and so that you'll get an alert when she's entered to run. But how do you know about that? And then where do I go? There's just so many different platforms, and a lot of them require payment, and it's hard because if you're a baseball fan, I have 2 little boys, and so I've gotten really into baseball because you start to follow the different players that you like, and then you get all the data, you get their information for free, so it makes it easy to follow these teams. And I do think there's room for improvement in getting the information in a way that new owners can, one, figure it out. How the heck do I do this? You're right, there are a lot of platforms on our phones, but how do I use them? And like as a sales company employee, they've got the Equine Line app, which is great for downloading all the sales catalogs. It's very easy to use, and once you download one sale, you have it forever. So you can download all the sales from all over the world, which is really nice. But I think something we could do better is make it easier for people to understand how to use all these different resources that are available, and maybe making. I know that Keeneland, I think, is giving out free past performances for the whole meet, and I do think that stuff goes a long way, and it teaches people how to be able to follow the horses they love and bet on them or follow them through their whole life cycle, like we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really interesting. And I think, too, one thing, again, going back to traditional household sports is what I would call them, so soccer, baseball, basketball, football, where kids are playing these sports every day. They watch teams every day, and the team concept, too, I think is an interesting one that the horse racing industry, I don't personally think has fully capitalized on yet. And I think there's an opportunity there to get some more followers and keep it.
And they have that new league that started. And so there are a lot of really exciting new things coming down the pipeline, and there's new owners. And I think the Netflix show was huge. We didn't realize it at the time, but then people showed up at the sales and started buying horses because they said, I watched that show on Netflix. I want to do what those guys are doing or what those women are doing. So it's like you never know where the next fan, the next owner, the next breeder is going to come from. And I can't tell you how many people have showed up at the sale and just started spending millions of dollars. And I'm like, who's helping you? Well, I know this guy from back at home, and he said he knows about horses, so he's my guy. And you're like, okay, great. So there's a lot of opportunities, as you girls have talked about, for people to get in the industry and for you women to help people. It's just amazing how many jobs and how many different touches the thoroughbred industry has, not only here in the United States, but all over the world. And it's just crazy, I guess the web, how it just kind of goes, how it's so connected.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that is so much about public perception with our sport is animal welfare, right? That's been a challenge over the years. Maggie, I know that you've been heavily advocating for animal welfare for a while now. Advancements have been made. There's still some challenges. Do you think the role of technology has helped us in any way there, and how could we use technology to help us improve animal welfare?
As far as animal welfare and technology, and everyone in this room can help everybody. I concentrate my life pretty much more now on animal welfare than anything. I have to say that it's gotten a lot better. It is better. It's still, no thoroughbred should have to, you're all in this because you love the thoroughbred. And you all are in this because you can go to Keeneland and you can see, the fancy cars and all the money. But there's just a wealth of horses out there that maybe weren't born into the best families that need our help. Technology and social media, unfortunately, is showing a lot of that. So where is that okay or not okay? The public perception is so important, because if we're trying to bring more people into the sport and bring people into it, you can't have a public perception that we don't treat these thoroughbreds right. I highly, for anybody that hasn't been to a barn over at Keeneland or at Churchill or any track and seen how these horses, and some like this peppermint and some don't. It's my favorite part is actually the barn, not the racetrack. But social media is something that is portraying things in a light that aren't accurate. And if we're not careful and we don't keep our eyes on the ball, there goes the circus and the greyhounds. And I know Amy Zimmerman over there agrees with me 100% that social media is, and the public perception. So there's so much you all can do with welfare. There's so much you can do. Just like there's bad doctors, bad lawyers, there's bad horse owners, and horses end up in a bad place. So that's my gig now. I spend probably longer on horse welfare than I do running my own racing operation. But always remember the great word karma. Whatever you give back will come back to you in drives.
Yeah, and I think technology has been, there have been advancements that allow us to be better participants in the sport. And in the horses' welfare. And I think too, you mentioned social media, and I think one of a really exciting thing, and I think you talked about this earlier, is kind of these social media influencers and how they're bringing more people to the sport and going to the barn to Instagram, essentially. So do you want to speak a little bit more?
You see people with large followings showing up at the race. I do think, racing had I always say there was a dark cloud following racing. We had a lot of deaths, we had a lot of negativity, but it feels like this might be shifting, which is great, because there's been all of us in this whole industry have really tried harder to portray a better image of the thoroughbred industry. There was the Light Up Racing was started, and all the different organizations seem to be saying, if we want this industry to succeed, we have to clean up this sport, and we have to clean up our image of this sport. So when you turn on SportsCenter, you're not hearing about horses that have died at the racetrack. You're hearing about all the wonderful things that they're doing to help keep these horses safe. And there's a lot of initiatives. We could talk about that for an hour. But I do think part of it is also these influencers are giving outside fans access to what is it like to own a racehorse. So they're going to the barns in the mornings, and they're talking to the jockeys, and they're showing the horse getting a bath. So they're showing the positive side. And like I said before, if a horse is $5,000 a month in training, I'm telling you, these horses live better than I do. They're getting massages, they're getting all kinds of therapies, they're getting well looked after, and I think these influencers, and honestly, I think Dave Portnoy has done a good job of how he has portrayed racing, how he's bought horses, and he takes us along for the ride. He shows us what it's like the whole way, and he also shows us the disappointment when your horse doesn't run well, or he's not just showing you or when he loses a huge bet. So I think hey, it's a hard sport, but it's a great sport, and there are a lot of great people doing great things. So I think all the new things that are happening are putting us in the right direction, and hopefully that will trend to more owners, more breeders, uptick in number of mares bred, uptick in fuller fields, better days of racing. So yes, there's negatives. Yes, it's a frustrating game, but there's a lot of people doing great things to turn this ship and head in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think some of the big-time players in the game are also getting more outspoken about aftercare, and so it's kind of full circle, just lifting up the industry.
Finally listen to Maggie, who's been preaching the gospel for a long time.
There also has been a strong growth in the aftercare market, or the secondary market for these horses. The Retired Racehorse Project is going on at the horse park right now. When I moved to Kentucky in 2006, I think once a week I was offered an off-the-track horse for free. I couldn't afford that. No such thing as a free horse. But now those same horses are going for $10,000 to $15,000 as retraining prospects. So many groups have worked hard to create that market and show the true value of a thoroughbred, and I think that's really helped out the aftercare situation.
Kelly, with the trends that we talked about earlier, is this something that you think we could just pivot and say, here's how maybe race numbers are down or whatever it may be, what can we do about that? Or is it something we embrace where we are and instead just improve that, where we are within that?
I think we don't have a choice but to embrace it. That's one person's opinion. But I do think that we can come together as an industry maybe better than we have in the past. And again, reach not just our current audience, but search for additional audiences. And I'm going to echo what's already been said. I'm so pleased with the influencer situation that we have right now. And the human interest stories are what is a huge draw. And when they bring that's what's going to get more people to want to pay attention to our sport. It's one of my favorite parts of Derby Day, right, to watch the pre-race coverage of all the human interest stories. And once that interest is there, I think that can help maybe dampen what the declines are that we've seen, because you have more interest and more respect for the industry, and that makes people want to be more involved.
Is there an opportunity to integrate with other sports betting or anything like that we could potentially try to pull from that market, or at least run along with it?
Yeah, possibly. I'm no expert on that by any means, but I do think that with sports betting, if you're on a sports betting site right now and you've never wagered on horse racing before, and that's an opportunity for you, well, you've just now been exposed to something that you never would have been exposed to before, and I think we should make measures to be able to capitalize on that in some fashion.
Yeah, and I think too the odds differentials there's fixed odds in other sports, and so that may present a challenge, but also potentially an opportunity in the future.
Right.
You have to you talk about where do we go from here if we all different tracks and we all kind of work together rather than some states fight each other with everything. When you go, I don't know, signing up to be an owner is itself extremely complicated. And if you're trying to run in 8 different states, from licensing to getting your money into your horseman's account and getting out of the horseman's account to claiming a horse, all of you that own horses or are involved in it, it is very difficult. So I think that with today's technology and there's so many ways that we can improve that system as well, where you can make it a little bit easier, once you get that National Racing Compact license and you can run in multiple states. Well, can the tracks work together to share maybe the banking system and continue to grow? And I do think it's starting, and I think that would help get more owners, make it easier, because it's really complicated.
Well, if you had any unity at all, I mean, if you brought everybody together, may it be technology or owners or everything, but it's not lost on me that horse racing right now, with the infighting between the HISA and HBPA's parallels the United States and the politics, and what makes it so distressing when we should be concentrating on people and their problems or the horses. Social media is just winning. It's winning because it's nasty, and may it be horse racing. I mean, if we could all just unite for the betterment of, sounds funny, mankind and or the horses, what a great world that would be, huh? We can do it, right? Just quit being, the nastiness and negativity is really getting hard to me with technology and social media.
Yeah, and that's why events like this are so exciting, that we can all be in the same room and have these conversations in an open environment and a safe environment, and hopefully all start rowing a little bit more in the same direction than
Hear, hear.
I feel like women are good at that. We can do things together and put our egos aside and work together.
Out here solving the world's problems today, not just horse racing. I love it. So overall, I mean, I think there's obviously economic challenges that the industry faces. Ownership is not necessarily the most direct. As you said, it's not an investment necessarily. I have been told a million times in my life, how do you make $1 million in horse racing? I said start with 10, you said 2, someone else said 5. So the reality is, you know, it's kind of a running joke of if you're going to be an owner, it's an uphill battle potentially to make some money. But if you're doing it for the love of it and for the love of the sport and the horse, the money will hopefully follow. And I think, too, something that is just a huge takeaway are the stats we talk about of the economic impact of the industry on the world as a whole. I mean, Kentucky, I see it light up every single time that Keeneland's running, when the sales are going, whatever it may be. And I think that's the same across Saratoga, I would say. And there's plenty of other places that it really just drives a lot of economic growth and economic spend in the cities that it's in. So it's really exciting stuff. What do you all think as women? You know, what have you seen from when you started versus where it's going, and what can we all do to help?
When I started, which I'm so old, I mean, I seriously, there wasn't anything like this. This is so incredible. And, you know, if there were women, they were standing behind their husbands. And the question is, how far have we come? Just keep marching. Don't worry about what you wear. Don't worry about how you look. Don't worry about anything other than being true to yourself and being true to the horse. I mean, I met all of these amazing women in the crowd that has made a difference, but don't be fooled that it's still way too man-orientated. Are there any even woman trainers in this room? She walked out. Okay.
Literally had to go to work.
Well, I rest my case.
No, and it could always be better, and that's definitely something.
No, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
You can wear leather leggings in a Keeneland box. Life is good now.
When I started, when I first got in, it was definitely more of an all-boys club, and it's shifted, and I've had to fight my way, but it's a good thing. Like, it gives you drive, and it gives me, like, a reason to keep pushing forward. And but I always tell anybody I speak to, represent yourself professionally, act professionally, just show up every day, work really hard, even if you're, you know, I started mucking stalls my whole life on my family's farm, and it was hard, and then working at the racetrack was tough, but it doesn't matter. Once you prove yourself, they don't care if you're a male or a female. You just have to keep showing up and have a pretty good attitude, and I say try to be professional, and they forget. They don't care. I go to the Middle East where it's all predominantly the people I'm working with. There are a lot of men, and they treat me they're the same. It's fine. So.
I think, too, we're evidence on this stage of this could be a lifelong career for women in this sport and in this industry. So that's a really exciting thing to see the opportunity there and see the potential for growth, too. I mean, it's really fascinating to see. Kelly, I know you've had various promotions and to get to where you are now within the same company, which is super exciting. And then changes in careers. I mean, we've seen a little bit of everything on this panel. So I'm just so honored to sit up here next to you all, and it's great to have have these people here today. So I think we have a few minutes for some questions, if anyone has any.
Hello, hello. This is on. Good afternoon, thank you. My name's Danielle. I'm originally from California, and the greater, longer standing part of my background is in hunter jumpers, and I was very fortunate. My first was born and bred at Claiborne. I had an off the track, and there's a lot of them in the polo industry, and obviously some more in the eventian world than some of our other sports. I've got my own theories, but I'm curious, particularly Maggie and Anna brought this up. The hunter jumper world 30 years ago was 90% off the track thoroughbreds, and now it's 95% warm bloods. And to, I think, Anna's point, something about the different tracks, like coming from Santa Anita, they're not an all-round track. Keeneland's not an all-year-round track. Churchill's not. So why do you feel it is, as women who have been more entrenched in the thoroughbred side for so many years, that we've lost the ability to retrain more into the hunter-jumper business, and or in a world where we're so connected and there is social media, why haven't the tracks come together to support each other and the racing community when they're not in season for their home season?
Well, I think the second question was, why are tracks not supporting what? I'm sorry.
Each other.
Oh. Oh, it's this little thing called money. We don't have like it's kind of a dog eat dog. Money is you can't, the tracks, I don't want to be cynical. They're fighting for horses. We have short fields. The tracks are fighting for purse money. The tracks are fighting for handicap dollars. The tracks are fighting. We have a lot of smaller tracks that may not be around next year. So that answers your first question. As someone that strictly showed thoroughbreds all the way to Madison Square Garden, I never sat on a warm blood. I only had thoroughbreds. The very strict drugs with the FEI right now, the warm bloods are quiet, the thoroughbreds aren't. I've tried. We have thoroughbred horse shows. We have the Retired Makeover, the jockey clubs doing thoroughbreds. But are we ever going to get thoroughbreds back into the big world of show jumping? Not in our lifetime. I don't know if I answered your question, but
I do think we're seeing more of them, though. I mean, I think I see Jenny over there. I'm not as involved in the horse show world as I once was, and I admit I have a warm blood. But
you have a warm blood.
he picked me. He's also retired. But we're seeing, particularly in the jumper ring around here, at least in Kentucky, you see a lot more thoroughbreds, and you're seeing a lot more thoroughbreds even in the hunters. Groups like Canner and New Vocations, they are, again, and this is my personal experience in Kentucky, so it's probably not the same as California.
Or New York, or Florida, or the big horse shows.
Yeah, in the last 15 years, we have seen a marked increase in thoroughbreds in the horse shows here.
Yeah, actually, the Kentucky 3-day this year eventing, Malibu Moon, the thoroughbred, was the biggest size, the most predominant sire. So the bloodline of Malibu Moon, a thoroughbred, was in, I think it was like 35% of the competitors. Obviously, some were mixed thoroughbred, warm blood, not straight thoroughbreds, but I think there were like 5 or 6 straight thoroughbreds. So that was something, I saw the clip come from Eventing Nation. I was like, this is awesome. Like, from the thoroughbred perspective, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And so it is fun to see. And that may have just been one show, and I think Malibu Moon is, for eventing horses, has been quite successful, and there's been some broodmares that are by him. But anyway, I think that there was a lull, and I think we're coming back now. Other questions?
I did. I had a question. Oh, it's actually me. Hi. I wanted to ask this to a panel, any panel. I don't think that it has to be specific to you guys, but I think it would be amazing to answer it. Have you ever wavered in your career path where there was a moment you didn't know what you wanted to do or you didn't know what to do? Andy said earlier this is an industry full of limitless opportunities, and I agree with that. So how did you navigate that time in your life, and what would you say to others who are not sure but are sure about their passion?
Hell yeah, I was a banking regulation attorney at one point. Like, what was I doing? You know, I think you just have to, my career path was slightly schizophrenic, so maybe not the best example. But be open to opportunities and really, you know, consider all the options. And don't be afraid. You know, what's the worst that can happen? You end up jobless, yes. But, you know, there's always something out there. So I'm a big advocate for taking risks and following your passion.
I 100% agree. I remember when I was working at the racetrack for Todd Pletcher, I was out of college and I traveled around, I worked horse sales all over the world, and then I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I told myself the way I'm going to figure it out is by trying everything and seeing what I can do, and I applied I tell everybody the story. The first year the Darley Flying Star came out, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, I was a senior in college, I was applying, I was going to do it, and I applied and I got denied. And I was like,
Me too.
My world is ending, what am I going to do? I cried, and then I was like, well, I'm going to go to all those places by myself, and so I started traveling, and then when I was working for Todd Pletcher after like their third or fourth year, you know, the racetrack's tough. It's a hard life. You're constantly moving. You're living on the backside, or, you know, I lived across, but you're living on, it's a hard life, and these trainers, I admire them that can do this year in and year out because it is very challenging. And I remember thinking, what am I doing with my life? All my college friends have these big jobs. They're going to law school. They're going to medical school. They all have careers. I work in a barn. I like wear barn clothes. Like, I'm going nowhere, but I just kept showing up every day. And then finally, I decided to go and see if I could get a job at Kraeszig Tipton. And then once I got the job, I looked back and I was like, I had no idea what I was learning that whole time at that job. So I just stay the course. Like, it's going to be really frustrating no matter what you do, no matter what job you have. There's days all the time, all of us, I'm sure you're like banging your head against the wall, like, is this really what I want to do? But just kind of looking back at all the people I met while I was working at the racetrack and all the things I learned and all the way I learned how to act on just so much stuff. I had no idea, and it all ended up like paying off down the road, because once I got to Kraeszig, I had this Rolodex of connections that I didn't even know. I had no idea how much it would benefit. So yes, for sure. I mean, I think we've all been there.
I think some of the nicest success stories you hear from anybody's career is when they tell you the story about when I took a chance on. And take a chance. You know, take on a role that maybe you didn't think you were gonna naturally progress into. Take on a little bit something different in your current organization, or maybe switch to another organization. If you have a passion for horses, stay with it. And there's so many opportunities. And this group right here proves what there is available out there to stay in this industry and still be able to fulfill that passion for you. So have faith in yourself. And if you're wavering, take a chance on yourself.
And if you're hitting your alarm button 5 times because you don't want to get out of bed, you're probably in the wrong job.
Sometimes you just need to vent. Go out with your girlfriends and tell them, and then they'll say, here's how I was in the same situation, and here's how I handled it, and that's what helped. Have mentors.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a huge part of it, is having people you can call and say, what do I do in this situation? I mean, I have like 4 or 5 very important mentors in my life, and I call them for everything, and they've helped me through some really difficult decisions, and I think that's, I mean, I don't know where I would be without those kind of people.
I thought I saw one. Is there another question? Yeah.
I just have a quick comment. I'm one of the older people in the room, and I've been in the business my whole life, equine attorney, but I've kind of charted my own path a little bit like you have, Maggie. One thing that nobody's brought up in the entire conference that kind of goes along with the business aspect that we were discussing is I do think that some of the younger people in the room are going to need to learn perhaps to have some governmental relations skills. We are under threat, and while our purses in Kentucky are better, everybody needs to understand how the purses are generated. And, you know, we're up here talking, and I'm very appreciative that FanDuel TV, I have nothing against ADWs or sports betting, but everybody needs to understand the economics. As you said, it's about money. And the economics of it is that the dollar that we put through the window at Keeneland is much more beneficial to the horsemen and women as far as the purse structure. Purse structure is extremely important because that's what brings new owners, new excitement, and keeps the breeders, they're able to raise their stud fees. The purse structure is very, very important. And many, many people do not realize, like somebody just brought up sports betting. Well, sports, and I'm not against any of this, I just want you all to be aware. Sports betting, you know, when we negotiated it here in Kentucky, we didn't receive any proceeds or allotment, as you were describing, the 10% where that money was going. Not personally against any of these alternative sources, but any of these states can take these sources away. So the next generation, I'm coming to the end of my career, I've just adding the commentary because we've not talked about governmental relations fighting for our industry. And some of you young people, I do believe, might find a home in that area if you're really passionate on the business side to perhaps figure out how to share the revenue, because the owners, as Anna said, you know, you're talking $4,000 or $5,000 a month for the owners. You got to keep those purses going up in order to pay these people, and it kind of generates the entire industry. And if we close our eyes to what has been being done and how those revenues are being split and not fight for our part of it, then, you know, we will have trouble. And we're very fortunate here in Kentucky because we did have a major, happened to be a man, but he did fight real hard to help us, or several people did, but with the HHR, and we are benefiting from that greatly. But there's other states that are actually seeing that be taken away. And it's always a possibility because the representation changes in every state. So.
Well, we really appreciate that. Actually, we've made note that maybe this would be a good panel for next year. It's an important topic. So,
Yeah.
so I've already noted it and shared it with Jody. Thank you for the commentary. Great.
Thank you all so much. This was a really enlightening panel, and I appreciate all of your time, and thank you all for the great questions.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you.